And you have to do your own time management, which means when you're looking at this paper, you need to be clear about this one thing कि भैया कोई sectional time limit नहीं है. This is a paper you have to decide for yourself how much time you'll spend in each of the 3 sections. Okay. And not only that, you have to spend sufficient time in each of the 3 sections to clear the sectional cutoffs. So I would say that is more difficult to handle because the time management problem is at your hand. Okay, time management तुम्हें खुद करना है. You cannot say कि भैया कि कैट में जैसे है 40 मिनट हो गया अगला सेक्शन चलो, someone else is doing your time management. In that you will have to decide for yourself, and that is one critical difference. And यहाँ पे देखा गया है बहुत बार that people flunk in this domain of time management. So that is what you need to be clear about. कि they give that I have always said, CAT is more like a test of knowledge. But that is an aptitude test because it is putting an extra pressure on you in terms of time management. It is telling you कि भैया negative marking भी है, sectional cutoff भी clear करना है. You also have negative marking if you don't attempt the question. But I am not going to do your time management. पूरा time दिया हुआ 170 मिनट किस तरह से यूज करना है वो तुम्हारी हेडेक है. Please work on it. Okay, so that's what this paper is all about. Okay, now let's compare CAT to ZAT to other papers. Okay. But look at CAT and ZAT. Okay. Now, when you look at this comprehension part, okay, first of all, ZAT has 63%, 64%, roughly 2/3 comprehension-based question. CAT is 36%. What do I mean by that? When you look at ZAT or CAT may English was 24 out of 68. Okay. Or to put it the other way, Quant and DILR was about 44 out of 68. This is QA as such, QA plus DILR. And this is the VRC. When you come to ZAT, QA is 28 out of 75. QA plus DI, because QA, these 28 questions typically include DI also. Okay? And when you look at the other portion, which is 47 questions out of 75, okay, 47 out of 75, what are these? These are your VRC or the English section and the decision-making section. This is more of a comprehension-based paper as compared to CAT. So, जिन लोगों की quant में तकलीफ होती है, those of you are not happy with quant, those of you think quant is your weak area, this is the paper for you. Those of you are comfortable with language skills, those of you are comfortable with comprehension, okay, this is the paper which is likely to be to your liking. Okay, that's the first thing. It is more of a comprehension-based paper, while CAT is so the way I would always look at it is ZAT is comprehension and CAT is numbers. Okay, QADILR, that's the 64% paper. So you look at this one big difference. Secondly, CAT gives you 68 questions to be done in 120 minutes. If I look at the paper as well, which is 2.3 minutes per question. Sorry, CAT is 1.8 minutes per question. Okay, I'm sorry, ulta likh diya maine. This is 68 question in 120 minutes. And as far as ZAT is concerned, it is 75 questions in 170 minutes. Okay, so more time per question. फुर्सत का पेपर है, जल्दबाजी करने की जरूरत नहीं है. दो ये और बात है, इस बार कैट में भी जल्दबाजी नहीं कर पाए, और जहां जल्दबाजी करने की कोशिश की होगी, आई एम श्योर यू वुड हैव स्ट्रगल्ड. Okay, but the key thing out here is there is sufficient time to do a question, and you don't need to rush by design. And to me, this, as I said, is one of the most important differences, that as far as this paper is concerned, ZAT has no sectional time limit, which means that complicates the issue. ये मुसीबत आपके सर पे डाल दी गई है कि अगर आपने क्वांट DILR या इंग्लिश या किसी के अंदर बहुत ज्यादा टाइम बिता दिया, if you spend extra time in one section, then you will possibly not be able to spend sufficient time in the other section. So time management is something which is there, which you need to manage. Theta question, none in ZAT. CAT में तो you have seen क्या होता है. Okay? Now, which is good for me. So as far as I am concerned, let me put it this way. To me, what are the positives of ZAT? This is a huge positive. I don't need to rush. Theta questions are huge positive because if there are choices, I always have the option of eliminating. Okay? Comprehension is a huge positive, especially for those of you who are not good in quant. Okay? Okay. And time limit, I'll say it is a neutral item. Some of you will be able to manage it well and you'll do very well. Some of you will struggle. So this item called time limit or sectional time limit is something which is neutral and different people will look at differently. Number of answer choices, 5 answer choices in that as compared to 4, which is a negative. यानी मेरे को अगर eliminate करने तो extra choice eliminate करनी है. And negative marking for unattempted question, yes, there's then that, but frankly, to me, it is irrelevant. It's an irrelevant item. I'll tell you why in a couple of minutes. Okay, it's an irrelevant item to me. It does not change the way I work. Okay, whether you have negative marking or no negative marking for unattempted question, the way I work does not change. Okay, so I'll talk about it as we go along. So that's the basic schema of the thing. So pehli cheez I'll again repeat. Those of you who are good in verbal comprehension, for those of you for whom English is a strength area, this is the paper for you. Okay, सार्थक कह रहे हैं मेरा तो VA वीक है. सार्थक VA वीक है, लेकिन इसमें क्रिटिकल चीज अभी जब वर्बल सेक्शन में जाएंगे तो वहां पे बताऊंगा कि हाउ इज इट दैट यू नीड टू मैनेज दिस पर्टिकुलर सेक्शन. Okay, unlike CAT, which is straight away biased, let me say biased towards people with mathematical skills, this is not a biased paper. This is giving you everyone sufficient opportunity. क्योंकि अगर मेरे पास verbal weak है, I don't need to rush. Many of you who are weak in verbal, what do? You take more time to do a passage. Okay, if you take more time to do a passage, it is available to you here. The 28 questions, sorry, not 28, typically about 26 questions of VARC. Okay, equivalent section. Okay, in that, you can easily spend something like 50 to 60 minutes. So there's 26 questions and इसमें RC बहुत ज़्यादा इसमें जो है out of 26 questions maybe there will be 50 questions of RC and the balance 10-11 question will be verbal ability. So टेंशन नहीं है इस मामले में इसके ऊपर, इस पे टाइम लगा के तुम कर सकते हो. So even if you are weak in comprehension, English or RC is your weak area, it does not really matter because you have sufficient time to do the particular section. Devraj, I'm not answering questions pertaining to non-ZAC papers. We had a session on non-ZAC papers yesterday. Gautam Baba ne liya tha, बीच में मैं भी आया था. It is available on YouTube. My suggestion is with respect to NMAT, please go through that video. Okay. ठीक है, सार्थक गुड. DM स्ट्रॉन्ग है तो हो जाएगा. अभी आगे बात करते हैं. ठीक है, चलो. So ZAC के ऊपर अगली चीज देखते हैं. What is it the next thing you need to look at? Okay. Now, the 3 sections, as I said, okay, verbal ability and logical reasoning. This is VARC. That is what they call. इसमें logical reasoning ज़्यादा नहीं होता, 2-4 critical reasoning के सवाल होते हैं. So when it says verbal ability, logical reasoning, a couple of questions of logical, critical reasoning, parajumbles, and so on and so forth. But you don't have the CAT DILR kind of data sets. Okay, this is not equal to CAT DILR. What is the logical reasoning? It is more verbal reasoning, which means critical reasoning. It will have questions of parajumbles. It will have a couple of questions of analogies, maybe. Then it might even have a parasummary kind of question. So go ahead. Okay. Then the second section is called the decision-making section. A new section. For those of you who have not taken that earlier, this is a section where you need to probably work a little bit. Even if you have taken that earlier, ये थोड़ा ना section सबको तंग करता है. There is a section जो लोगों को काफी तकलीफ देता है. And when I'm looking at this section, this is where I would want you to spend a little extra time. Third section is QADI, quantitative aptitude and data interpretation. Typically, this section, okay, when I look at these sections, typically verbal ability has about 26 questions. DM has about number of questions. DM has 21 questions and quant has about 28 questions, adding up to total of 75. Okay. GK पे बाद में आता हूँ, ठीक है? Okay. Now, out of these 28 questions of quant, you can say about 8 to 10 questions are DI. And I'm saying DI, not LR. It is data interpretation. Typically, calculation based वाला आता है इसके अंदर. And the balance, let's say 18 to 20 questions happen to be QA. Okay. So that's the kind of breakup, which means अगर तुम्हारा quant weak भी है, तो DI के सवाल निकाल सकते हो. And like CAT, it is more you will find it to be more arithmetic dominated, because this 8 to 10 question of DI are also arithmetic essentially. Okay, that is the part out here. Okay, then we have the general knowledge section. But what you need to remember, as far as this paper is concerned, your percentile is based on these three sections. Okay, percentile is a function of your performance in VALR, verbal ability, logical reasoning, decision making, and quantitative aptitude and data interpretation. Your percentile comes from here. The fourth section, GK, is a separate section of 10 minutes. Okay, so the first three sections are 170 minutes, and there's the fourth section, which is 10-minute section. Okay, it's 10 minutes. Typically there are 20 questions, and I've never understood ये इतना सादा time क्यों देते हैं कि 3-4-5 मिनट में सब खत्म हो जाता है. GK is something which you will either you know the question or you don't. 5 मिनट बहुत होते हैं, but they tend to give you extra time, and ठीक है, you can always go through those questions again. Okay, now the marking scheme. There's typically no sectional for GK. It is not considered as far as this paper is concerned for the, let's say, interview shortlisting. Interview shortlisting is based purely on your percentile in the first three sections, which is 170-minute section, and GK का कोई score मिलेगा, percentile भी आएगा, percentage marks भी दिए जाएंगे, but end of the day it is not used at all. Occasionally they'll probably look at it when you go for the XLRI interview, but उसके अलावा outside XLRI no one looks at the GK score, and XLRI also is not very rigid about it. Okay. Marking scheme, +1 and -0.25. Why -0.25? Because that has got 5 choices. So it has got 5 options. Okay. CAT has the CAT marking scheme is +3 and -1. Or in terms of this, it will be equivalent to +1 and -1/3 or -0.33. Okay, this is a CAT marking scheme, but that marking scheme is +1 and -0.25. So ratio के हिसाब से with 5 options, typically the right approach is to give a negative marking of 0.25. Okay, then you have this -0.1 negative for every unanswered question beyond 8 questions. Okay, so let me assume that the paper has got, okay, let me just look at, if the paper has, this paper has 75 questions. Out of these 75 questions, let me assume you attempted 50 questions and the unanswered questions are 25. What would this mean? First 8 questions, there is no, first 8 unattempted questions, koi problem nahi hai. After these 25 minus 8, which is 17 questions, you will get a negative marking of -0.1 per question, which is 1.7 marks. And these 1.7 marks will be distributed between the 3 sections. So if you did not attempt 25 questions, you have a negative marking of 1.7 marks for the total, okay, which is 25 minus 8, 17 questions at the rate of 0.1 per question. And how will this be distributed? In VALR, it will be, there are 26 questions out of 75. So 26 by 75 into 1.7. This will be a negative marking for VALR unattempted questions. Your negative marking for DM will become 21 upon 75 into 1.7. And QA will become 28 upon 75 into 1.7. Or you can say approximately it will be about 0.5 to 0.6 marks per section you will end up losing. So whatever is your final score, after that, what is your score on the basis of regular marking of +1 minus 0.33, उसमें से about 0.5, 0.6 marks will get reduced to compensate for your unattempted questions. Okay. Now, a little while ago, मैंने बोला था यहाँ पे that unattempted question, it does not change the way I work. Why does it not change the way I work? I will still attempt a question only if I know how to answer it. जो solve नहीं करना आता, I will leave that question. Why? Because if I leave the question, I get a -0.1. If I mark a wrong answer, I get a -0.25. And I'm sure सबको मालूम है, a penalty of 0.1 is better than penalty of 0.25. So as far as I am concerned, while this is there, I will ignore it completely. to me does not exist. I will attempt the paper with my standard way of doing it, which means I'll leave the question, go through the data, whether it is quant, DILR, quant, DI, decision making, or the verbal ability section. All I will do is I'll go through the passage in English, understand, I go through the question, जो समझ आया उसका आंसर मार्क करूंगा, जो नहीं आया उसको छोड़ दूंगा. I am not going to mark an answer unnecessarily just because there's a negative marking for unattempted question. Okay, because as I said, minus 0.25 is for negative marking for the long answers. Minus 0.1 is negative marking for unanswered question. I would rather take a minus 0.1 as compared to minus 0.25. Same thing in the parajumble. पैराजंबल या फिर इवन वोकैबुलरी क्वेश्चन आ जाते हैं, फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स आते हैं, डिसीजन मेकिंग और क्वांट क्वेश्चन. द रूल इज सिंपल. इफ आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड द क्वेश्चन, इफ आई डोंट नो हाउ टू सॉल्व इट, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू अटेम्प्ट इट. Okay, that's the way I would look at this paper. Okay. Now, थोड़ा पिछले 5 साल का जरा देख लेते हैं पेपर पैटर्न क्या है. Okay. Okay. Now, when you look at 21 to 25, you'll find it has almost become fixed. Okay, 26. Decision making, though, has fluctuated between 21 and 22 questions. Okay. But quant is also almost fixed. So, in the last 5 years, you'll find by and large, this paper will have, we can say, this paper typically has 26 questions of verbal ability, 21 questions of QADI, decision making, and 28 questions of QADI, adding up to 75 questions to be attempted in 170 minutes. Okay. The time limit they have kept on changing, कभी ज़्यादा किया, कभी कम किया, but अभी इतने पे by and large ये लेके चल रहे हैं. Secondly, the number of questions of GK has also varied from 25 to 20, but by and large, I will say that 20 questions, 10 minutes, and till the year before last, till 24, there used to be an essay to be written. Last year, they got rid of essay, and uska compensation kya kiya, because essay again was being used only by XLRI. तो उन्होंने कहा कि अगर खाली XLRI को essay लिखवाना है, that can be done at the time of the interview. So the VAT or essay writing would be done when you go for the interview. Okay. Okay. So when you're looking at this paper, when you look at the last 5-6 years especially, you need to be clear that the pattern has been by and large fixed. Not only that, the question types are also similar. If you look at XAT, let's say till 2017, you will find there were slightly different papers, especially with respect to quantitative aptitude. वहां पे the so-called higher maths was also there. Base system काफी आता था पहले. Then you had questions of permutation, combination, probability a lot. Algebra used to be difficult. In the last 4 to 5 years, you'll find, especially as I said, after XAT 2017, XAT 18 onwards, you'll find that the level of difficulty of quant has come down. So QADI level of difficulty has reduced. At this point of time, I'll say as far as QADI is concerned, XAT is easier as compared to CAT. The level of difficulty of XAT quant is easier than that of CAT. Okay. So I hope the pattern is clear to everyone, by and large. No negative marking in GK, and there is no sectional cutoff for GK. Okay. Okay. And critical reasoning question GMAT से या GMAT level के नहीं होते हैं, उससे आसान होते हैं. But yes, you can always practice critical reasoning question of GMAT also if you want. But before you do that, सार्थक एक बार XAT के last 2-3 साल के पेपर देख लो, so that you know what kind of questions from XAT you're supposed to look at. Okay. Devraj will come to resources for DM in a few minutes. We'll go section by section, but let's look at this part first. Okay. Chalo. Cut off. Okay. Now this is the next thing you need to look at. Now when you look at the cutoff, इसके अंदर typically you will find 4 categories: male engineers, female engineers, male non-engineer, and female non-engineers. ये interview calls में देते हैं इतना. Now when you look at this particular thing, just compare male engineer to female engineers. Aggregate percentile cutoff there's a difference. Similarly quant, similarly in verbal, similarly in DM. So the way to look at it is, if the cutoff for engineers is X percentile, it will be about X minus 5 for, male and female, X and X minus 5. Okay. Similarly, यहाँ पे तुम देखोगे, as far as this particular BM program, and BM and D and HRM में भी थोड़ा सा फर्क आ जाता है. So when you look at this BM program, it is a male versus female which is an issue. Okay. So when you look at this particular BM program, the cutoff for engineer male and non-engineer male is the same. Similarly, the cutoff for engineer female and non-engineer female is the same. So when it comes to BM, the cutoff is based on your gender. Males typically have a +5 percentile requirement. So if the requirement, again, you can look at females also, 91, 91, 82, 82, 80, 80, 80, 80. Okay. So the cutoff is, from a BM perspective, is based more from not from an engineer, non-engineer perspective, but from a male-female perspective. Okay. So as far as XLRI BM program is concerned, you can say you have got gender diversity benefit. Okay. There's a gender diversity which is being taken care of. And what is the benefit of gender diversity? Your cutoff requirement is 5 percentile lower for females as compared to males. Okay. But when you come to HRM, okay, here you will find a variation across. Now look at the males first. Okay, look at the males. Engineer technology male and non-engineer male. There's a difference here also. Verbal में नहीं है, but yes, quant में है. So the moment you look at this part, what typically happens out here is, when you look at the HRM program, the percentile cutoff requirement for quant varies for male and male, within males also, engineer, non-engineer, and within females also. Okay. So if I look at this part, okay, if you look at this part, engineer male has a 83 percentile quant cutoff. Last year, non-engineer male had 76. Okay, engineer female had a 73, non-engineer female had a 68. So यहाँ पे both acad diversity as well as gender diversity is being looked at. When it comes to HRM, both academic diversity and gender diversity play a role. But when it comes to BM, only the gender diversity plays a role. Yeah, Alpan, what is the issue? Pankhuri, no reservation in XLRI. The number of seats in BM, I think, if I remember correctly, I think it's 240 or 300. Somewhere around that, 240, 300. And same with between the two programs, they have something like a 500 seats. Okay. Okay. Pankhuri, if there's a question and you want to speak, you can speak also. That's not an issue. Oh, गगन नहीं, ये XLRI जमशेदपुर का नंबर बोले थे मैंने. XLRI Delhi would be an additional 120. Okay. So those of you who want, you can always look at taking a screenshot of this particular slide. Might be useful for you, but itna major issue nahi hai. Look at it in the more important slide is, I would say, the next one. While you can have a look at this one, let's look at the next slide. Okay, yeah. Now look at the cutoff marks for BM for the last few years, BM and HRM for the last 3 years. Okay. Now, important thing is to remember, VALR has got 26 questions last 3 years roughly. DM 21 or 22, I'll take 21. QADA has by and large been 28 with 75 questions. Now in a 26 mark paper, look at the cutoff, 8.6 marks, 8 marks, 10 marks. So XAT 2023, 24, 25, 10 marks, 8 marks, 8.6 marks. So what you're saying is, if you get a double digit score, if you have a score which is greater than 10, you are safe. You are safe when it comes to BM. When it comes to HRM, you need a slightly higher score. So if you notice, I don't know if you noticed out here, but look at the verbal ability cutoff: 86, 84, 90, 80, 85. Similarly, 90, 85. So you will find typically HRM program has a higher cutoff for verbal, and BM program has a higher cutoff for quantitative aptitude. Okay, and the DM cutoff is typically is not too much different. Though DM का cutoff HRM में थोड़ी सी ज्यादा हो जाती है कई बार, but ऐसा कोई major issue नहीं है. That is more because of the number of applications they have. But by and large, when you look at this paper, please remember that the DM cutoff is same across, usually the same across both the programs. QA cutoff is higher in case of BM, and verbal ability cutoff is higher in case of XLRI HRM. Okay. Achha, another thing, there's a common merit list for Delhi as well as Jamshedpur. So the interview call is not for Delhi separately or Jamshedpur separately. There's a common merit list. So the interview calls are for both the campuses and all the programs, and you're supposed to choose your preference. So when you're choosing your preference, obviously Excel Jamshedpur will be preference 1, and from a BM perspective, and Excel NCR or Delhi will be preference 2. Okay. 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 Similarly, if you look at DM, look at the cutoff across the board. By and large, similarly, quant. 28 marks paper, a cutoff of 8.7 last year for BM and 7.3 for HRM. 24 was 5 marks. 23 was a much more simpler paper, and it went up to 13 marks for BM and 10 marks for this. Okay. So, ये paper में ना sectional cutoff is usually not an issue. Okay. And the rule of thumb is, if you are getting a double digit score, usually if you get a double digit score, then you are definitely above the sectional cutoff. Okay, double digit score in a section means you have scored, you are safe. Yes, sectional cutoff clear ho gaya tumhara more or less. Okay. Similarly, if you look at the overall cutoff, this is a paper with 75 questions, na? 33 marks, 31.3 marks, 27 marks. Okay. And this is what we are talking about 19. This is about 95%. This is about 91%. Okay. So depending on the year, it will go up and down depending on the level of difficulty. Okay. XAT 23 was a very, very simple, a much more easier paper, which is why the cutoffs also went up significantly. But the same thing to remember is, or like if someone were to ask me, kitna minimum aa jana chahiye kisi section mein to be able to clear the cutoff, I'll say if you are getting a 10, 10 and 12 and an overall of 35, you are absolutely safe. You will get a call by and large. Okay, if you're getting 10, 10, 12 minimum in each of the section, and your overall score is more than or equal to 35, you're absolutely safe. Actually, 30 plus pe call aa jati hai, and 35 typically is 97 percentile, 97.5 percentile ki range ka hota hai. So that also is a reasonably good score. And remember, XLRI has about 65% weight for XAT score. So good XAT score is definitely an advantage as far as XLRI Jamshedpur is concerned. Okay. Yes, absolutely right. Sarthak, 40 में 99 percentile usually आ जाता है, and 50 में you are typically almost 100 percentile. Okay, very, very important question Pankuri has asked. Okay. I wish to pursue brand management, marketing. Should I still apply to HRM? I already have applied to BM in General Management program since I have 35 months of work ex. Yes, Pankuri, please apply to XLRI Jamshedpur for HRM also. Kyunki when you look at XLRI HRM, क्या होता है यहाँ पे? Typically the placements here happen to be not only in the domain of HRM. About 50% of the students are able to get placements in consulting, marketing, product management, general management. So So this is about half the batch gets into non-HR areas. So Pankuri, you should definitely apply here as a backup. Okay. This could be a third preference. Your first preference, Pankuri, should be XLRI Jamshedpur BM. Second preference should be XLRI NCR BM. Third preference should be XLRI Jamshedpur this HRM. Okay. There is only sectional cutoff in XLRI college. Aditya, no, as I said, there's an overall cutoff also. Okay. Okay, chalo, ठीक है, let's continue then. Okay. ये रखना चाहो देख लो. If you want my sessions, take a screenshot as a reference for yourself. I'm just holding on. I'll stay on the slide for a few seconds more. Let's say half a minute more. Basically, तो मैं बता रहा last year का है ये. This is XAT 25. Okay. This is XAT 25. What was the situation like? The score versus percentile across the three sections. It's telling you from 70 percentile to 99.5 percentile. Okay. Take a screenshot, might be useful for you. Okay. So let's go further. Okay. Now, this is what I was telling you. Typically, 35 marks is around 97 percentile. 40 marks is 99 percentile. That's a typical thing to look at. Okay. And about 28 to 30 marks would be something like a 90th percentile. So what is the kind of score you are looking for? And while you can get a call at a lower percentile, also 95, 96 may be call aati hai, but converting becomes difficult because, as I said, as far as XLRI is concerned, for that they have a 60 to 65% weight. Okay. And the interview process typically has about a 20 to 25% weight. Okay. So a high XAT score is always an advantage, and if you can get a 40, 45 kind of a score, you definitely are at an advantage over everyone else who has been shortlisted for interview. Okay. However, please remember this is for last year. This is based on XAT 25 scorecard, which means the paper which happened in January 25. If the paper becomes more difficult, then obviously the cutoffs will go. These numbers will go down. But the paper is unlikely to be easier than what you're seeing here. And if you remember, look at the last 3 years. Okay. Okay, this is a normal paper. Okay, let me say, if you look at, while there's a 3-year data, if I were to show you 10-year data, I would say this is a normal paper. This is 23 was a easy paper, and 24 was a difficult paper. So you have seen the 3 ranges. So इस paper का तुमको range दिख रहा है, क्या हो सकता है, and accordingly you can decide for yourself. Any questions so far? Arpan, वो देख लिया है? Have you seen the marks versus percentile, or you want me to show it again? Screenshot ले लो Arpan इसका. You have the screenshot, you can use it as a ready reckoner from a last year perspective. Okay, let's go section by section now. Okay. We are looking at the part 1 first of all. Okay. Okay. Part 1 is 3 sections: verbal ability, logical reasoning 26 questions, decision making 21 questions, quantitative aptitude, data interpretation 28 questions, total of 75 questions to be attempted in 170 minutes without any sectional time limit. Then there's a break of a couple of minutes given to you, and then you will have the part 2 given, which will be another 10 minutes of GK. Okay. As I said, ये 10 मिनट में नहीं होगा, 5 मिनट में हो जाएगा, 5 मिनट खाली बैठे रहोगे, but you can't help it. Now, how much time to spend in each of the 3 sections? I'll come back to this later. Okay, but उससे पहले मैं चाहता हूं कि let's look at the sections first. Okay, I want to look at the sections first, then we will come to these two scenarios. Okay. Muskan, absolutely yes. देखो ZAT लेना है. The way CAT लिया है, ZAT लेना है, उसको छोड़ना नहीं है. Because you will find many students are able to get higher score in ZAT in percentile terms as compared to CAT. And there are many institutes which take both CAT and ZAT scores. So for the institute which are taking both CAT and ZAT score, if you have taken ZAT also, you have an advantage कि तुम्हारा वो वाला score लिया जाएगा between the two, which is the higher one. Okay, so please take that even if you are a so-called mediocre student. Okay, now look at this pattern of the paper for last 4-5 years. Okay, that 25, 20, so from 21 to 25, you'll find reading comprehension out of the 28 questions. Again, if you remember, each, so not 28, there are a total of 26 questions out here. Each of these 5 years had 26 questions. Okay. I'll just switch off my phone. Okay. Now look at this. 15 questions, 13 questions, 12 questions, 12 questions, 15 questions. We can say roughly 50% of the paper is reading comprehension. Typically, it will have 4 to 5 passages. Okay. Sometimes it will be 2 questions, sometimes it will be 3 questions. Okay. But the passages are not lengthy. The length of a passage is typically about 250 to 300 words, which means it is about 2/3 of CAT. Okay. CAT typically has passages of 450 to 500 words. ये almost 50 to 60% है. So 50% of the paper consists of this. And if you include the poem comprehension, typically एक poem पे एक poem दे देंगे and 2 questions as to what do they mean. We will talk about the comprehension out there. So if you look at these two combined, so what are these 15 plus 2, 17? 15, 14, 15, 17. Okay. So this is clearly 60-65% of the paper. So between poem and reading comprehension, you will have typically 60% of the paper, and the balance 40% is critical reasoning, parajumbles, fill in the blanks, and grammar. And each of them is 1 or 2 questions. ऐसा नहीं कि बहुत ज़्यादा आ जाते हैं. Critical reasoning is your summary or a particular critical reasoning question given out here. जो जैसे someone was asking कि GMAT वाला देखना चाहिए, बिल्कुल देख सकते हो. But as I said, पहले ZAT के 2-3 पेपर देख लो, so that you know what kind of question you are looking at. Okay. Secondly, when you look at parajumbles, these are MCQs, which means elimination of choices becomes very, very comfortable as far as this particular question is concerned. So in CAT, parajumbles are difficult because you don't have choices in front of you. As far as this paper is concerned, parajumble is much more easier because you can eliminate options based on a pair or based on the opening statement or closing statement. Okay. Same with fill in the blanks and grammar based. So typically, करना क्या होता है इस पेपर में when you look at these questions? About 10 odd questions. Okay. About 10 questions. 5. Okay. Look at these. About 10 to 12 questions depending on which year you are talking about. So I'll say this is about 10 questions. This particular portion is about 10 questions. And your job is to make sure कि पहले ये करें. So when you start the VALR section, my suggestion is don't go to reading comprehension or poem first. पहले critical reasoning, parajumble, fill in the blanks निकाल दो. Okay. And once you have done this, out of these 10, getting 5 to 6 marks is definitely not a problem. Okay. So, and if you remember the cutoff for the verbal section, BM, HRM, BM, HRM, BM, HRM. So what we are talking about is even if you are looking at the highest cutoff in these last 3 years, that is 13 marks, 50% of this can easily come from those 10 odd questions of verbal ability. Okay. So इसलिए जरूरी है, जैसे कि CAT में we have always been shouting at the top of our voice, both Jijo, me and other faculty members, here we are the verbal ability, please don't miss. I'll say the same thing out here. These 10 questions, you'll find 5, 6, and at times even 7 to 8 questions can be solved comfortably. So these 10 questions typically should be able to give you about 6 marks. And which means you are very close to clearing the cutoff. Now you can pick and choose these IC passages and the poem comprehension. When I say pick and choose the questions. You will read each of the passage based on your understanding. Where you feel confident, mark the answer. Where you don't, maybe you can leave it. Or if your nature is of marking answers, go ahead and do it. But you will find the RC passages here to be a little more dense as compared to CAT. If you found the CAT passages, looked at the CAT passages, if you remember your CAT passages, in XAT, the passage will be a little more difficult to read. And that is something that you need to practice. And the best source of preparation for this kind of IC is old XAT paper itself. Great, Sarthak. Okay. Okay. So this is broadly the section that we are talking about. Okay. As I said, just to repeat this particular thing, RC is typically 250 to 300 word passages. Okay. And these are a little more dense as compared to what I've seen in CAT. There's one poem comprehension. Between reading comprehension and poem comprehension, typically about you'll have 15 to 16 questions, if not more. More than 50%, let's say 60% of the paper consists of this. The balance 40% of the paper is MCQs or verbal, which includes critical reasoning, parajumbles, fill in the blanks, and grammar based. These are typically 10 questions, and you will be able to comfortably get 6 question marks out of it. The easier bit out here is parajumbles, fill in the blanks, and grammar. ग्रामर के लिए बहुत सिंपल है. जो ग्रामर के जो है 200-300 सवाल जो तुम्हारे पास है 2-3 बार कर लो. You will be able to easily identify the errors. And इसके अंदर elimination of choices happens a lot. Critical reasoning is your para summary and critical thing, a passage followed by a question kind of questions. And typically not difficult, but yes, you can assume दो तो यहाँ पे हो जाएंगे. So getting a score of 6 out of 10 in the verbal part is not difficult, and 6 out of 10 in verbal means you have significantly covered the gap between the sectional cutoff and your score. If you are good in verbal, okay, so if you are weak in verbal, then I would say your target should be to get 10 to 12 marks. But if you are good in this particular section, if you say verbal ability or reading comprehension by strength area, then you could even look at 15 to 17 marks in this particular section. Okay, or let's say up to 20 marks. Okay, so any specific question about the verbal ability section? Devraj is saying if a person is able to get 6-7 marks from verbal and around 3-4 marks in one of the RC, will it make it 95 percentile? No, it will not make it 95 percentile. It will help you clear the cutoff. Depending on the paper, cutoff to clear ho jayega. It is not going to be 95 percentile, could be about 85 percentile also. Okay. Again, look at these last few years papers. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And the cutoff for verbal, typically, as I said, 80, 85, 80, 85 or 90. Okay. So 95 nahi hoga. If you are clearing the cutoff, you are typically somewhere around 85 percentile. Okay. An average VA student should be okay. Abhi आऊंगा यार. Don't worry, Sarthak. I'll come to the time spent पे भी आऊंगा. आदित्य RC अच्छा नहीं है, practice करना पड़ेगा. And as I said, unlike CAT, the biggest advantage you have here is that you don't have to rush through the passage. Shorter passage, and yes, it is a little more dense, but it's a shorter passage, roughly 50 to 60% the length of CAT. Each passage is about 250 to 300 words, unlike CAT, which is typically 450 to 500 words. Okay. Devraj, तुमने screenshot नहीं लिया इसका? Yeah, Devraj, I asked you to take the screenshot now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so average VA student. Okay, so ideal time to be spent in the sections पे आता हूँ मैं. ठीक है. Now, let's just look at just ensuring that you don't forget जो मैंने बोला है. Okay. Last 2-4 साल में we have not had questions from vocabulary. Except in fill in the blanks, but you could easily get questions on vocabulary in form of analogies and synonyms and antonyms also. Okay. critical thing. Okay. RC is something you need to practice a lot. Okay. So this is what I said. First attempt the verbal section. Okay. Which will take less time, and you'll be able to get, let's say in these 20 minutes, you'll be able to get 6 to 7 marks comfortably. Even if you're spending about 2.5 minutes per question, you'll easily be able to get 6 to 7 marks in these 20 minutes. And then you can move on to the RC part. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If extremely important. If you are good in this section, back yourself. If verbal ability is your strong point, then IC में पूरा पंगा लो, back yourself and get a good score. If you are weak in this section, that kind of simple rule है. In your weak section, look at clearing the cutoff. In your strong section, look at going high. If you are strong in English, you should be looking at 18 to 20 marks. If you are strong in maths, you should, or quant, you should again be looking at about 18 to 20 marks in quant, QADI. DL, anything between 12 to 15 marks is a very good score. Okay. Just to give you an example, look at the point. Okay. And if you look at the para-jumble, choices are there. 5 statement para-jumbles, choices are there, so life becomes easy. And but while they are the regular question, I want you to look at this question on the right. Observe the cartoon below carefully and answer the question that follows. Cartoon by Tom To, originally published, etc., used for educational purposes. The boy is thinking, I love how he finds joy in simple things. Okay. And the dog is thinking, the emotional burden of elevating his depression is crushing me. Which of the following best explains the underlying message depicted in the cartoon? Okay. Which of the choices best explains the message, the underlying message depicted in the cartoon? Yeah, we have only 3 answers so far. And I think we have covered everything except E. Choice A, our understanding of others. What happened? Our understanding of others based on our beliefs may not be true. Choice B, our sense of duty for others can overwhelm our sense of self. Now, our sense of duty for others, for the dog, this might be duty, but for the boy, it is not the duty. So this is definitely a wrong option. Okay? Similarly, love is about caring for others, even if it wears out. D, our interpretation of others' reality is most arbitrary. E, our sense of identity based on others' interpreters. So this is not about the identity part. Okay. The correct answer. Yeah, absolutely right. Some of you have given the correct answer, choice A. Okay. Our understanding of others based on our beliefs may not be true. The boy is thinking that the dog is having all the fun. And the dog is thinking, I have to take care of them. So, okay, why not C? Okay. Okay. Yeah, anyone? Why not C? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, when you say, Devraj, when you say C, is it about love? It is not about love. It is about understanding. The boy thinks that the dog is having fun. Okay. But the dog, that is not what the dog is thinking. Okay. So it is about misinterpretation more than anything else. It would have been about love. It was doing it. It was doing it, and the dog was also enjoying it. It is a okay. Yeah, absolutely right. You can say, Pankuri, that in a way, option C is from the dog's perspective. Yeah. Shubham, we'll have this discussion on the answer some other time. Okay. I just wanted you to show this question because इस तरह का critical reasoning का question शायद नहीं देखा होगा कभी. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll quickly look at ये वाला सवाल भी देख लें. Why not D? Shivangi, because it is not arbitrary. Where on what basis are you saying it is arbitrary? Okay, it is based on my understanding, na? Okay, चलो we'll come to when we do the session तब इसकी बात करेंगे. Okay, now let's come to the decision making section. Okay, टाइम कितना बिताना है सेक्शन पे मैं उस पर थोड़ी देर में आ जाऊंगा अभी. ठीक है. Now when you look at XAT papers of the last few years, XAT 21, 22, 23, 24 and 25. First thing, 21 questions almost fixed. Okay. Second thing, each of them is case studies of 7 case studies, 7 case studies, 7 case studies. Only in 23, you have 5 to 7 and 1 8. And there's 1 3-question DI set. So while there are 7 case studies with about 19 questions, these 7 case studies have 19 questions. We have 1 DI set with 3 questions. Okay. Now, if you go back to the past, till about 2017-18, every year we would have one particular data set of DI also, decision making section में. But उसके बाद बंद हो गया है. Now we only have what I call behavioral or situational case studies. Okay, where you are expected to make a decision or based on the data given and the decision criteria defined or to be identified by you. Okay? So 7 sets of data and with 3 questions each seems to be the norm. 21 questions. Okay, that is the first thing. Okay. नहीं, NMAT जैसा नहीं है, NMAT अलग होता है. Okay. 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 Now it consists of mathematical and behavioral decision making, but please take this with a pinch of salt. This has not happened for the last 5-6 years. So this may not happen, or rather, let me say this has happened only once in 23, and before that, before that, it used to happen till about 2017 odd. उसके बाद से it is almost vanished. So behavioral is the one. ये शायद नहीं आएगा और ये आएगा भी. So this for you is for all practical purposes DI set. Okay. Second thing, the behavioral case studies typically give you data in the form of passage in which a situation is given. Okay, so you are given a situation in the form of a paragraph. So this again is reading comprehension to some extent in terms of the fact that you have to read and understand the data. Okay, but beyond that, it is not reading comprehension. Okay. Okay. So you have to treat the DM question of mathematical DI as, but उसको छोड़ दो. I am not too worried about that क्योंकि CAT के नाम पे इसकी बहुत तैयारी हो गई है. To me, this the behavioral one is what you should be looking at. Okay. Now, the best way of solving is to eliminate choices. Okay. You eliminate choices based on the parameters of constraints, fairness, equality, legality, etc., etc. The critical thing here being you have to identify the decision criteria. What is the criteria for taking the decision? Criteria is something that you need to identify. From the passage, sometimes question will give the criteria, sometimes it will not give you the criteria, and then you have to go by the criteria which you have to infer from the passage. Okay. Okay. Extremely important to be completely objective and should not let your personal biases influence your decision. Okay. Okay. My suggestion always do about give the section about 45 minutes, which is roughly about 2 minutes per question. Okay, and target attempting. Okay, there's not 23, there's about 21 questions actually. Target attempting 17, 18 questions. Why? Because there's some subjectivity involved in this. There's subjectivity involved in decision making, and there will be a few questions जहां पे तुम्हें confusion होगी. Maybe leave those questions. Okay. I'll be on the mute for a couple of minutes. Please go through this data. I want you to first read this particular paragraph. This is a situation given to you. Okay, let's have a look at this data. I'm assuming all of you have read it, but quickly I will still go through it so that we are on the same page with respect to the data. Sundram stores operated in a gated community situated 30 kilometers away from the main town. The store owner, Mr. Sundeshwar P. or Sundram as he was called by everyone, secured space in the gated community through a competitive bidding process. The resident association, led by Mr. T.S., selected Sundram over the other bidders based on his willingness to pay the highest rent. Desperate to augment his post-retirement income, Sundram agreed to pay a very high rent, banking on the prospect of generating exceptional revenue from the gated community. Sundram was awarded the contract to establish the store with provision for a review every 3 years. Feeling elated during the meeting with the residents association to finalize the contract, he enthusiastically committed to offering a 15% discount on all groceries and stationery, cementing goodwill and reinforcing the partnership established through the contract. The association was delightedly taken aback by the generous assurance. Okay. Sundram hoped to make up the difference through volume. Although the sales were strong during the initial months, he soon realized that the SUV owning residents of the gated community primarily made their purchases at the large branded stores, retail chains in the main town. These stores offered deeper discounts, which he could not afford to compete with. However, gradually, Sundram's store became the go-to store for daily essentials and occasional urgent big purchase, such as replacing a broken mixer grinder. Excuse me. Okay. Now, this is a situation. Any doubts about the situation per se? Okay. Okay. Let's look at the question then. Okay. So far the data gives us only the situation that Mr. Sundram has opened a store in the gated community by paying a high rent, and when the contract was signed, he even offered to give let me repeat. He enthusiastically committed to. Uh, He enthusiastically committed to offering a 15% discount on grocery stationery. Okay. Uh, his store did not do as well as he thought. And most of the people, while they would buy uh, the daily essentials from his store, okay, they would go for the daily essentials for his store and occasional urgent big purchase. But most of the time, they would go for large branded retail chains. Okay. So the bigger purchases were not happening, and hence he was possibly not making money. Okay. So question: while reviewing his monthly accounts, Sundram realized he was barely breaking even, primarily due to substantial rent that he was paying to the Residents Association. He realized that his sales were stagnated. The rental costs were continuously contractually scheduled to increase every 3 years. He was determined to sometimes do something to increase his profits. Okay? Which of the following will be the most sustainable way to increase Sundram's profit? So, what is the decision criteria? The criteria in which you have to decide, on the basis of which you have to decide, is that his profit should increase in a sustainable way. That profit should be sustainable and which should be increased and be sustainable. That is what the decision criteria. Okay, look at the choices. He should meet with the Residents Association to negotiate a lower rent. Now, the first question is, one, this is not up to him to reduce the rent. It is up to the Residents Association to reduce the rent. And he got the place through competitive bidding, and he himself offered that rent. So there's a very little chance that they will agree to it. Secondly, this will reduce his cost. He also needs to increase his sales. Okay? And reduce this cost reduction is not really in his hand. So while this may be helpful, this is not a very good option. Okay? Choice B. He should advertise about his shop through the leaflet and gated community. Absolutely useless. He is only increasing his cost. Okay. And he will be spending money, increase his cost, with no guarantee that the sales will increase. So he has to increase his profit. There are only two ways of increasing the profit: reduce the cost, increase the revenue. Okay. While choice A can help reduce the cost, it is not under his control. So here I am looking at something which is under his control also. Okay. Choice C. He should remove all discounts he was offering to sell at the maximum retail price. Okay. He should remove all discounts he was offering and sell at the maximum retail price. Okay. Now, if he removes the discounts that he was offering and if he sells at the maximum retail price, what would happen? His revenue or his profits will go up, and that will be sustainable for him. What is the negative? He has himself offered a discount. So he enthusiastically committed to offering 15% discount, cementing goodwill. Okay. The association was delighted, etc., etc. And okay. So is this a discount which is based on the contract? No. Contractually, he has to pay the rent. This discount was an offer made by him in the hope of better volumes. If those volumes are not happening and he removed the discount, he's still fine. So between choice A and choice C, I would say I would prefer choice C and not choice A, because choice A is not within his control. And since he has come through competitive bidding, that means there are other people willing to take the place. So if he cannot even tell the resident association that if they don't agree to a lower rent, he can walk out of the place, because there will be someone else who will be willing to take that place. So between A and C, C is a better option. Okay, let's look at D. He should offer to procure items unavailable at his shop from the time on the resident demand. But why do residents go outside? Why do residents go outside to make their purchases? Okay, and I'm going back to the passage. The SUV owning residents of the gated community primarily made their purchases at large branded retail chains in the main town. These stores offer deeper discounts. So they're not going there because of any other reason except price. So even if he's going to procure the items from there, from them, he will not be able to buy it at the same price. He will be forced to sell it at a price which is higher than what they can get from the main stores. So the residents are unlikely to be taking the stuff from him because he will not be able to match their price. So D is not a good option. E. He should introduce cheap Wednesdays. where he will sell groceries at 40% discount. This is against the criteria. What this means is lower profits. Profits go down further. So forget about sustainably increasing the profit. This will reduce. Wrong choice. Correct answer will be choice C. Okay. Arpan, C और E में कोई debate ही नहीं है. E leads to lower profits. So he cannot do it. Among the choices, the best option would be to remove the discounts, because removing the discount is going to lead to better margins from him. In any case, what people are buying from him are daily essentials, and something which they need urgently, they will buy it, even if the price is a little higher. Okay. Secondly, removing the discount is not a problem because it is not a contractual thing. It was a offer that he made, and he can remove that offer if the volumes are not going ahead as per his expectation. Okay. Anushka, what will you do with the goodwill? What will you do with the goodwill if you cannot survive? Okay, so that's the issue you need to ask yourself. And out here, okay. No, Rachna, it will not reduce the sales because again I am reporting. However, gradually, Sundaram store became the go-to store for daily essentials. For daily essentials, they cannot go to the market every day. Na? Okay. The SUV owning residents of community primarily made the purchases of retail chain in the main town. They cannot go to the main town for every day for daily essentials. So daily essentials, they'll still buy from here, even if it is not without the discount. Okay. Okay. So two things out here. This discount of 15% was not a contractual thing, so he can remove it. And Sarthak Mitra, why they put to say that commuting is not a problem? Go back to the first line of the paragraph. Sundaram stores operated in a gated community about 30 kilometers away from the main town. Okay, the residents are 30 kilometers away from the main town. So for daily essentials, they cannot go to the main town every now and then. Daily essentials, they'll buy from here, but big ticket purchases, they'll go to the main town. Okay. Okay. What about the second question? Please read the question and type in your answer. I'll just get a glass of water. Hey, question 2, we have one answer. D. Okay, well, wait for others also to give an answer. We have a B as well as a D. I'm just underlining the answer option we have got. B and D is what we have got so far. So the decision criteria I'm highlighting. Which of the following action will best address the concerns of the residents association? So here we have to look at from the point of view of the residents association. What are the concerns of the residents association? The residents association did not like losing the rent they were receiving from the vendor. So one concern. Additionally, the maintenance staff at the gated community benefited from receiving the vegetables either free or at low prices. Okay. Okay, because they rather than throw the stuff away at the end of the day, he would sell it at a low price. This enables resident association to retain the maintenance staff. Okay. 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 Now let's go to the choices. Okay. So here we, in the previous question, the criteria was the benefit of Sundaram. In this particular question, who should be benefiting? We should be looking at the benefits to the resident association. So ये बहुत clarity होनी चाहिए. यहाँ पे मुझे सुंदरम का फायदा नहीं देखना. In the previous question, my purpose was to look at the benefit for Sundaram. What is it that will be benefit Sundaram? In this question, I will not bother about Sundaram at all. My decision criteria is the benefit of the resident association. And resident association को दो चीजें चाहिए है. मेरे को rent भी चाहिए as a resident association, which I have lost out, and I also have to be able to retain my maintenance staff. Okay, the maintenance staff of the gated community have to be also retained. So what will do that? Let's look at this. Okay, choice A. Residents Association should request bids from various shop owners to open another grocery store. Now, इससे कौन सी problem solve हो रही है मेरी? Yes, I will get rent as a resident association, but what will I not get? My maintenance staff issue will still remain, because वो vegetable vendor था who was willing to give those vegetables at the end of the day at throwaway price. A grocery store owner will not do it. So choice A is not a good option, for the simple reason that it is not taking into account both the concerns of the resident association. उसका दो concerns है, एक concern is being met, not the other one. Just a second. Okay. Now let's look at the next choice. So A is definitely ruled out. Okay. Next choice. The resident association should ask Sundaram, should request Sundaram, the resident should ask Sundaram to use the erstwhile space for selling vegetables and pay rent. Why will he do that? Mr. Sundaram is already selling vegetables in this particular place. Why will he take an extra space and sell vegetables when he can do it in his existing space itself? So choice B is not relevant at all, because इसमें जो है Sundaram क्यों राजी होगा? Because he's already selling those vegetables in his existing store. Okay. Third, choice C. The residents should impose a fine on Sundaram. 6, he was not. What is the store for? The store is for daily essential groceries, etc. So vegetables can easily be sold in the store. So choice C is one. It is definitely the wrong approach. Secondly, even if I look at putting a fine on Sundaram, it is not solving the problem. What is the problem? They want rent. They want to retain their maintenance staff. दोनों problem नहीं solve हो रही, तो C का फायदा क्या है? Okay, so fine लगा के you will again get existing partner जो vendor है उसको भी दुखी कर दोगे. So while that vegetable vendor has gone away, even Sundaram might decide to pack up and go. So it is neither helping the let's say the resident association get a revenue source of rent on a regular basis, nor is it helping them retain the maintenance staff. So remember, there are two criteria: rent and maintenance staff. Retention of maintenance staff. These are the two criteria that you need to look at. D. The resident association should discount the rent for the vegetable vendor to increase competition and ask him to continue. Okay. Now, if the vegetable vendor continues, the maintenance staff issue is taken care of. The rent issue is partly taken care of because थोड़ा कम rent हो रहा है, because they are giving a discount. So from zero rent, they'll start getting some rent. So is it a good option? Yes, better than the other three that we have seen so far. Okay. Choice E, the resident association should ask Sundaram to give specific quantity of vegetable for. Yeah, ये तो completely irrelevant है ना? Why will anyone give from their own thing free when it's not required? Also, it does not even take care of the issue of rent for the association. Choice G is the best option because, well, they'll not get the full amount of rent, they'll get some rent, but their maintenance staff retention issue will be taken care of. Okay. So the best option here is choice D. And if you look at the two questions, I'm again repeating. Pehle question where decision criteria was is securing the interest of Sundaram. In the second question, the decision criteria is securing the interest of the association. Is this fine with everyone? Any doubts? Okay. So it seems no doubt. So let's continue then. Let's go to the QA section. Now look at these last 5-year papers. Okay. Now, how much is the paper? Typically, you'll find arithmetic, algebra, geometry, number system, mod maths, others which are general purpose questions, data sufficiency occasionally. Now look at how many questions are there. Data interpretation is there. And data interpretation is arithmetic. Okay. So if you look at each of the years, you're talking about 9, 10, 11, 12, 12, 9, 23, 3. Okay. But look at this. Arithmetic plus data interpretation. How much does it become? 12 plus 4, 16. 3, 3, 9, 10, 11, and 12, 13. 8 and 3, 11. 12 plus 3, 15. 9 plus 7, 16. Out of this is out of a total of 28 questions. So you'll find again arithmetic is the biggest component. Okay. Then we have algebra, geometry, roughly equal. थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे हो जाता है, but by and large they're equal, I would say. Then a couple of questions each from the other areas. Okay. So what is that you need to focus on most? Like in CAT, here the focus again has to be arithmetic and data, arithmetic and algebra. Okay. And if you're good in geometry, obviously you can add geometry to it also. Okay. Okay, so schema is fine. And as I said, the level of difficulty of XAT QA is less than that of CAT QA. Okay. So what you have seen in the CAT this year, XAT is likely to be much more easier. And as I said, if you look at the last 5 years papers of XAT, you will get that very good idea as to what kind of questions you can expect from here. Okay. Okay. Now, if this is a strong area, you need to look at attempting almost all questions, and your target score then becomes 20 plus. Okay. If you are average in quant, you can still look at the score of about 12 to 15 questions, 12 to 15 marks. Okay. Works. This works here. Here also. Okay. While many of you may have been struggling to apply Jugaad and Quant in CAD, once the response sheets come out, I will do a session. I'll show you how many questions you could have done with Jugaad. Okay, but let's not worry about it right now. Okay. Okay. An example of questions. A few questions from QADI of XAT. In an 8-week course, professor administers a test at the end of each week. Each of the 8 tests was out of 4 marks, and the student could receive only a non-negative integer score, which means the scores can be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. A non-negative integer score is what you can get. And 0 is the smallest, is a non-integer, non-negative. Yeah. 2 students, Ravi and Sumana, took the 8 tests. In the first test, Ramini and Sumana got the same marks. From the second to 8th test, Ravi scored the exact same non-zero marks. Sumana scored the same marks as Ravi from the 5th test onwards. Ravi's total marks in the first 3 tests was same as Sumana's total in the first 2 tests. Also, Sumana's marks, etc., etc. So what is this? This is a data set of DI which is given to you. Make the table. put numbers, and you will be able to get the answers. Okay. So there's a kind of a DI set which is there in front of you. So you'll say Ravi, Sumana, test 1, test 2, up to test 8. Make the table. Okay. Marks out of 4. Okay. In the first test, Ravindra and Sumna had the same marks. Okay. From the second to the 8th test, Ravi scored the exact same non-zero marks. So second to 8th, Ravi had the same test marks. Okay. Okay. Sumna scored the same marks as Ravi 5th test onwards. So T5, T6. Ravi's total marks in the first 3 tests was same as similar total tasks. So these 3 x plus 2y. Ravi's total marks in the first 2 tests are equal to Sumna's marks in the first test is equal to y. Sorry. In the first, Sumna's marks in the first 2 tests. So x plus a. Okay. Also Sumna's marks in the first test. Sumna's marks in the first test, total marks of the first 2 tests, and total marks of the first 8 tests are in geometric progression. Sumna's marks in the first test, Sumna's marks in first test, total marks in the first 2 tests, T1 plus T2, and total marks in the 8 tests. These are in geometric progression. A, so if this is x, xr, xr square. Okay. And what can be the marks? The marks can be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now start making cases and get the answer. And if you look at the question, if Ravi scored 4th marks in the first test, so if this is equal to 4, this will also be equal to 4. Okay. So now you can start making cases for Sumna. How many marks did Sumna score in the 3rd test? Okay. If Ravi scored 1 mark in the 2nd test, so if you look at first question you need to go conceptually, but question number 2 and question number 3, you can easily start making the cases based on the condition given. So third question says if Ravi scored 1 mark in the 2nd test, it says y is equal to 1. This means in all of them he's taken 1 mark. So make the table and look at the others. Okay. I'm just erasing the writing work that I've done out here. You have a regular DI or regular quant questions out here. Okay. Adu's piece of land is a square where Amu's piece of land is circle. Ratio of area, they bought 2 pieces of land from it, both have the same perimeter. Standard question of mensuration or geometry, whatever you want to call it. The ratio of areas of their land is what is being asked. Same parameter. One has a square and the other is a circle. So if this is x, then 4x is equal to pi r square. Is equal to 2 pi r, sorry. Perimeter is the same, na? You can get. And the right approach would be here. Take the side of as 1. That means 4 should be equal to 2 pi r, which means r should be equal to 4 upon 2 pi, which is equal to 2 upon pi. Area of the square is 1 into 1. Area of the circle is pi r square. Okay. So pi into. Okay. So answer becomes 1 is to 4 upon pi. So answer should be pi is to 4. So regular question of quant, nothing to be really worried about. Okay. Now, before we move to GK, let me come to the other part जो थे ख्याल से important. How much time to be spent in each section? यार एक बार पहले सवाल तो देख लो, कुछ सवाल तो नहीं बचे हुए. Yes, Sarthak, I agree with you. Irritating. Okay. Okay. Let me just come to the time segregation now. Okay. Now, देखो पहली चीज ये मैं लेके चलूंगा. Before I go to the next slide, let me look at it here. Okay. Okay. 3 sections. First of all, when I'm looking at 170 minutes, we have verbal ability, logical reasoning, and QA. Okay. 26 questions, 21 questions, and 28 questions. Now, typically, when you're looking at verbal ability section, my suggestion would be not to give less than 50 minutes. And you can go as high as 60 minutes. Okay. 50 to 60 minutes, not less than 50 minutes, but not more than 60 also. Actually, 50 to 55 minutes is a very good number to look at, but let me put this range as 50 to 60 minutes. If you are weak in English, even then 60 se zyada nahi dena, because if you are giving more than 60 minutes, what this would mean is, one, you will not have sufficient time for the other sections. Second problem that you'll have is that you will end up over analyzing the question and getting stuck with the question. Okay. Similarly, if you look at DM, I would say anything from 40 to 50 minutes. After all, what are these? These are 7 passages to be read. You have to read these 7 passages. Once you read these 7 passages, what would you do? You will go through those questions. So 21 questions. Each passage can be 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, 4 minutes or 5 minutes. So if I'm giving, let's say, 46 minutes per passage. Okay, 7 passages, it's 42 minutes. So something 7 to 8 minutes per passage will mean something like 21 questions can be done in something like 40 to 50 minutes. Okay. And when it comes to quant, I would say give it a minimum of 60 minutes. And you can go to as high as 70 minutes. Okay. So that's the range. In general, what I would say is a midpoint would be 45, 55. Okay. That makes it 100 and 70. That's the kind of thing you can look at. If you are good in quant, your 70 minutes could come down to 60 minutes. If you are weak in quant, give yourself 70 minutes. So when you look at this particular paper, my suggestion is that when you look at this paper, your stronger section should be at the lower end of the spectrum. So if you are good in quant, 60 minutes, you should be able to do very well in this section. If you are good in English, you should be able to do very well in English in 15 minutes. Okay. DM is a new item for you, so default start with 45 minutes. Okay. So default 45 minutes, or you could even say, take it as very simple thing. This is 50, this is 60, this is 70. 50, 60, 70, 180 हो गया ना, sorry. Okay. Yeah. ठीक है, चलो अपने हिसाब से कर लेना. But something like 45 minutes out here, 55 minutes out here, and 70 minutes out here is a reasonable thing. Yes, Gagan, you can go back and forth. Okay. Pankuri, in quant, you can easily do a question and look at these few questions that we gave you. Pankuri, what would you say is a good time to do these questions? These 2 questions will not take you time. These are 3 questions, and like a DI set, you need to make cases and solve them. And out here, second and third question are something because there's a additional data given that can be used. How many minutes should we aim to solve? Something like 3 minutes per question, 3 to 4 minutes per question is good enough, Pankuri. Okay. Look at attempting about 20 odd questions. If you are good in quant, you should be looking at going to 25 odd questions. Okay. Okay. If you are good in quant, if you are not good in quant, about 20 odd questions is good enough. And if you target 20 odd questions, you get 12 to 15 right, you have done your job. Okay. Now let's look at this part. Okay, time division. Okay, this is what I was discussing with you right now. Okay, 170 minutes, 45 minutes for decision making. Okay, is something that I would ask you to start with this assumption. कि 45 minutes लगेंगे. Based on your practice and based on going forward, you will possibly be able to reduce it to 40 minutes or go to 50 minutes. But 45 minutes का start लेके चलो. Quant, as I said, has become easier over the years, and it has now, I would say, quant of XAT is easier than that of CAT, and which can lead to higher cutoffs, which is why you should look at doing about 20 odd questions so that you are reasonably sure of getting a double digit score, or maybe even a close to 13 to 15. Okay. As I said, language and decision making paper. This part, critical reasoning, and yes, I'll look at this. Okay. Now let me look at this one. Okay. 3 different strategies I'm suggesting. Yeah. 3 different strategies. यार थोड़ा सा टाइपो हो गया, बट कोई बात नहीं, उसको मैं ठीक कर देता हूं. 56, 57, 57 is a stupid thing to look at. Okay. Okay. But ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं. See, when you look at the neutral strategy, we are saying give roughly equal amount of time to each of the sections. Okay. Don't worry about anything. Say you will give equal amount of time. Now, my problem with this is, if you are going to give 55 odd minutes to decision making, you will be wasting your time. You will not have anything to do, and what you will do is you will end up spending more time in those questions which are confusing, and you will confuse yourself further. Similarly, if you give only 57 minutes to quant, you will not have sufficient time to do your whole paper. So this is a starting point at best, but to me, this is not the strategy I recommend. Though many students start by saying, let me give 55 minutes to each of the 3 sections. Okay. So your choice with respect to that, but not a recommended strategy. To me, the recommended strategy is either strategy 2 or 3. And strategy 2 is for someone who's strong in verbal. Okay. If you are strong in verbal, VA, verbal ability, logical reasoning, DM in 45 minutes, 65 minutes for quant, that makes it 110 minutes, and 60 minutes in decision, in 55 minutes in this. Okay. Okay. So 45 up to 45 minutes in this is what you can look at. Okay. And similarly, you can look at if you are strong in verbal, then give 65. So all I'm saying is, if you are strong in verbal, okay, if you are strong in verbal, you can do verbal in shorter span of time, and you should give higher amount of time to quant. If quant is your strong area, you should give a little higher amount of time to verbal. Okay, but जो मर्जी कह लें, effectively घूम फिर के क्या आ रहा है? घूम फिर के ये आ रहा है कि decision making is something like 45 minutes. QA, DI, and VALR. If we remove out of 170, 45 minutes out here, we are talking about 125 minutes. Okay. So between these two, you have 125 minutes. And I would say the stronger section should get lesser amount of time. So stronger of the 2 sections could be 55 minutes. And the weaker of the 2 sections could be about 70 minutes. That's what I would look at. You could play around with it. My suggestion would be take a couple of mocks, or go through the last couple of years papers to identify. Okay. Now, which section to do first is completely your choice. I've just followed the sequence of section 1, section 2, section 3. The reason being, quant end में होता मुझे कोई तकलीफ नहीं होती, quant हो जाता है. When I'm doing verbal, I find the passages to be a little tricky, in that a little dense to read. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I'm absolutely fresh when I'm doing verbal. So which is why I start with verbal, and I want to end with quant, because quant में fatigue factor मेरे को तंग नहीं करता. So my sequence of attempt is this only. But entirely your choice, no hard and fast rule. Important चीज ये है that you need to stick to the time limit that you decide for yourself. Okay. Please stick to the time limit that you decide for yourself. Otherwise, you will find that the last section will suffer. You will not have sufficient time to go through it. Okay. Any questions? Shubham, 15 is a low attempt, I would say. 15 into 3, 45 is a low attempt. Shubham ka question is 15 into 15, 15, 15 a good attempt in this paper. I will say if I'm looking at this paper in VALR, I will look at attempting about 18 to 20. Decision making maybe again around 17 to 20. Let's say around 18 out here also. And QADI about 20. Okay. So I would say look at an attempt of about 55 to 60 in this paper. When it comes to DM, you will definitely leave, let's say 3 to 4 questions because कुछ समझ नहीं आएगा क्या आंसर है. Similarly, in verbal ability, either you leave one odd question from grammar or you leave a few questions RC. You'll end up leaving about 5 to 7 questions. Let's say 6 questions you'll end up leaving out here, 6 to 7 questions. Similarly, so between these two sections itself, you will leave about 10 questions because you will not be able to confirm, you will not be able to decide on the answer. And maybe another 7 to 8 questions is what you will have to leave out here. So between these three sections, about 15 to 20 questions you have to leave. So when I'm looking at, let's say you are leaving about 18 questions. So negative marking on account of unattempted question will be for 10 questions, that is minus 1 mark. Okay. Shivank, if you are comfortable with keeping quant in the end, then it is fine. Okay. I normally want to start from a section which needs me to be fresh. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's come to GK. अनिकेत को GK की बहुत टेंशन हो रही है. Aniket, first of all, GK percentile is not used for getting interview calls by any of the institutes. Okay, पहली चीज ये है. Secondly, GK के marks even XAT does not really worry about. They will look at it at interview and they may even ask you a free GK question if they find your scores to be excessively low. But beyond that, there's not much to be worried about GK. Okay. Sarthak, your choice. My suggestion is with what sequence to go for. The sequence to go for, please decide after taking a few papers based on your comfort. Okay. Now, this is important. Shubham, I think take a few papers, but you'll find it is not difficult to attempt 55 to 60 questions. 55 से 60 क्वेश्चन आसानी से कंफर्टेबली अटेम्प्ट हो जाते हैं without putting pressure on yourself. 15 into 3, 45. You see, my problem with 15 into 3, which is 45 questions, is if you attempt 45 questions, let me assume if you attempt 45 questions, 15 questions in verbal, you'll probably get maybe 3 to 4 wrong in verbal. You'll get at least 4 to 5 wrong in DM also. So between the two, you will probably end up with about 7 to 8 wrong answers. So 8 wrong answers. Or let me say 9 wrong answers on the higher side. So your 45 is down to 36 already. And then the negative marking will come in. Okay, chalo, high accuracy में भी कितना accuracy high होगा? Shubham, if you are attempting 45 questions, 15, 15, 15. Let's say you get 12 right in verbal. 3 wrong. You get 12 right here, 3 wrong. You get 12 right here, 3 wrong. Or let's say you get 1 wrong here. Okay. So what is it? 24 and 38. And then what is this? Roughly 8 marks. 1/3 is -2. You had 36 marks. And now you have 30 unattempted questions. Okay. So -8 gives you 22. So minus 2.2 marks, you have down to 34. So if you are going to attempt only 15 into 3, realistically, you will not go beyond 34, 35 marks. Okay. My suggestion is don't look for 100% accuracy. Definitely not in verbal as well as DM. In quant, you can get 100% accuracy. But verbal ability and DM, please assume you will have only about a 75 to 80% accuracy. So 15 is a little on the lower side. My suggestion would be to look at doing something like 18 to 20 in verbal and at least 17 to 18 in DM. Sarthak, Shubham, I hope this clarifies. Shubham, I have said this earlier also, maybe you joined in late. It is not the question of getting an interview call. XLRI has 60 to 65% weight for XAT score, which means if your XAT score is less than 97.5 or 98 percentile, your chances of conversion become very low. So please look at the holistic picture and don't fall in this trap of looking at a very high accuracy, which will not happen. I'm sure you have looked at CAT also so far, and 100%. And CAT is an easier paper of verbal as compared to XAT. XAT, the passage will be more difficult to read, so the chances of getting a high accuracy in verbal is ruled out. Okay. Okay. Please note this. This is your go-to material for GK preparation. Okay. Vidhi, this is what I'm just sharing now. My zone study material GK compendium. And secondly, please start reading the newspaper also. Okay. Now, just to give you an idea, because many of you may not be thinking of taking XLRI, but क्यों लेना है ये है. Look at the list of colleges which are available. And yes, many of these are through CAT also. And for example, IMT will take both CAT as well as that. IMT will take CAT as well as that. Great Lakes again will take both of them. IMI takes both. TAPME takes both. Goa takes both. KJ Sumaya takes both. Okay. So many of these institutes you'll find take both CAT as well as that. And hence, if you have taken both these papers, you have the luxury of applying based on the higher of the two. Okay. And for all the girls, XLRI Jamshedpur, 57% female. Okay. And this is also because the percentage of girls in the the BM program is much higher. Okay. Okay, chalo, let's go further. Okay, so some of you are asking how to prepare. First of all, this is a program available, and okay, there is a program available. And given कि तुम लोग का CAT में बहुत बुरा हाल हो गया है, and Gautam Baba was very generous and said, let me offer a program which will make it easier for everyone to go for that. And hence, he's giving the full XAT online program at a throwaway price. And additionally, if you want the XAT full line mocks, etc., also there's along with sectional test, there's another price. So at something like a 1,300 rupees, 1,400 rupees, you can easily look at preparing fully through this program. Okay. So the live classes, 23 live sessions along with strategy sessions and dot solving, that's for 999 rupees. And the XAT full length mocks, 8 full length mocks and 12 XAT section tests at another 400. So something like 1,400 rupees you can look at preparing for this. My suggestion would be to enroll for this program rather than doing anything. It includes the complete preparation, including DM. So all 3 sections covered in this program, and along with your full length tests, full length XAT and section tests also. Okay. Additional resources, you have a Telegram group, support at careerlauncher.com apart from the class, and you have the MBA. You have the QR code for all the others given to you. Okay. In addition to this, you could also look at the OpenCAT platform for your free resources for preparation. Okay. The QR code for the Open CAT is also given. Okay, any questions from your side? Shivam, start with for that immediately. Shivam, as far as NMAT and SNAP are concerned, as far as SNAP is concerned, all you need to do is take mocks. There's nothing much to prepare. And those of you who joined in late, yesterday, Gautam Baba and I took a session on other exams apart from CAT. So there we have dealt with NMAT, SNAP, and MyCAT in detail. Please go through that video of yesterday. Say you will get a reasonable good understanding. And as far as Shivam, you are concerned, your question is, should we start preparing side by side for XAT and PDP or after SNAP exam? If you are looking at preparing for PDP, that means you have done well in CAT. Is that right, Shivam? CAT ठीक ठाक हो गया है, तो SNAP भी हो जाएगा. All you need to do is take 5-6 mocks of SNAP and that's it. उससे ज्यादा की जरूरत नहीं है. Okay? उसके ज्यादा की जरूरत नहीं है. So start preparing for your XAT and PDP. So your schedule has to be XAT plus PDP on a regular basis along with your SNAP mocks. Okay. Devraj is saying, do you think QA questions are same level of that of CAT? No, Devraj, as I said, as far as just a second, kya ho gaya ye? Let me just, it seems the shame scaring has stopped. Let me reshare. Just give me a second. Yeah. Okay. Let me just come here. रखने की जगह भी मिल जाएगी. Let me just open the chat window. Yeah. Okay. Devraj, I had said earlier also, as far as QA is concerned, XAT is easier than CAT. Please don't be afraid of XAT. XAT QA is easier. XAT verbal you will find a little more difficult. As I said, the passages will be a little more difficult to read and understand, and that is what you need to focus on. Okay. One more thing. Something that I would strongly recommend to everyone in terms of preparation. Please make sure that 2018 to 25 papers you do definitely. Okay. So as far as, okay, let me put it this way. As far as QA is concerned, you should do XAT 2018 to 25. As far as DM or English is concerned, you should do XAT 2008 to 25 papers, all of them. If you are looking at the old XAT papers, as many papers of XAT you can do for DM and English, the better you would be. Okay, the best study material for preparation of XAT DM and XAT verbal are all XAT papers from 2008 to 25, and almost all these papers are available in your MyZone. So please go into your study material section of the MyZone old papers. You'll find the XAT papers available. Please pick them up from there. Okay. And as far as QA is concerned, don't go before 2018 because those papers are very different from what you are getting in quant today. So galti usme nahi honi chahiye hai. Okay. So if you look at saying, let's say you do XAT 2020 to 25 as mocks plus 5 mocks at least. This is what you should do minimum. But as I said, for DM and English, it will be important for you to go definitely to all the past papers and gain good practice there because XAT का English में थोड़ी सी तकलीफ आने का हमेशा से चांस रहता है. Okay, Vidhi has a question. Okay, that's fine, Pankudi. काम पे लग जाओ. How is ISB YLP program gonna expense only? Okay, first of all, Vidhi, While ISB YLP is excellent program, you should definitely look at it. Again, I would say ISB YLP would be similar in terms of opportunities, placements, etc. to ABCL Excel FMS. Okay, so बिल्कुल देखना चाहिए. Secondly, if you have to take GMAT, you can probably need to give yourself a couple of months for GMAT preparation, purely in terms of test taking strategy and a few topics here and there, and then you can take GMAT. But if you're expecting a course score of let's say 97, 98 percentile or above, then you should be able to get a call from YSB subject to your profile. So if you are 98 percentile and above, शायद मेरे को लगता नहीं है GMAT की आपको देने की आवश्यकता होगी. Which faculty will we see for lectures for that? The same as night class faculty. Okay, same night class faculty will be there. Jijo and I have done significant amount of DM. Gautam Ba would be there, Ravi Teja and Aditya and others would be there. Manu Bali should be there. He was there in the classes, so he should be there also. Okay, I don't know the exact schedule as to who all will be taking the exact classes, but the faculty pool is the same. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll ask GB to take the DI6. That's fine. Shubham, you can, so that's fine. That means he's there. No. Okay. Chalo फिर. For those of you who are CL classroom students, my suggestion would be to connect with your center also. Okay. Please connect with your center also, and they would be starting classes for your center also. Yes, Shubham, I will be there. I will be there for that classes. Don't worry. Okay. Okay, and those of you who are not enrolled, this is a good opportunity for you to enroll for the XAT online classes. Okay. Okay. So, any more questions? If there are no questions, then we can call it a day. Arey wah. So Shubham says he stays next to XLRI Jamshedpur. So Shubham, you can go to the Career Launcher Center in Jamshedpur and check out. They would also be running batches for XAT. Devdat says CAT when decent have NMAT on 6th and followed by snaps. So Devdat, I would say NMAT is on 6th. So next 3-4 days. So you can postpone your XAT preparation by about a week or so. Finish off with your XAT and then don't worry about snap. Just take a mock every day for snap and focus on XAT. Yes, Shivam, we will do that session. Shivam, I asked, can you conduct a session for which colleges to apply regarding percentile? Let the response sheet come out, which I think will come out in the next couple of days. After which we will give you the detailed percentile, and based on that, we'll also suggest colleges to apply. Yes, Vidhi, that should be fine. Vidhi, unfortunately, MyCat PIQs are not available. They don't release it, and so they are not available. Devraj says, what will be covered in the course for 999 for that? Devraj, all 3 sections, 23 sessions plus 10 strategy sessions. And if you take this add-on stuff, you will also have the XAT mocks and 12 sectional tests. Okay. So 999 plus 399 is what I would say is that 1398 package is what you should look at. Okay. Okay then. That's fine. Anything else from your side? Feel free to connect with me. I'm writing down my phone number. And my email ID is gp@careerlauncher.com. Okay, Sarthak says I've done complete syllabus for CAT. What extra do I need to do for that? Extra what you need to do for that, first is decision making. Second is you need more practice for verbal for RC. Because as I said, more, as I said, the questions are going to be, or the passages are going to be a little more. Passages are going to be a little more dense passages. Okay. Then you need to look at taking mocks. Okay. Let's say 5 mocks, and my suggestion would be to take XAT 2020 to 25 papers as also mocks. So Sarthak, this is the minimum I would suggest that you look at doing. Just to repeat, as far as GM is concerned, XAT 2008 to 2025 papers should be covered. Okay, so XAT 2008 to 2025 papers for DM and English. All these papers to be done. Okay. And as far as Quant is concerned, XAT 2018 to 25 papers. Okay, then if there's nothing else, then we can stop then and we'll close the session then. Okay, there's a Q&A question. Sundram is saying this program is included MBA 25 night classes. Yes, it is included, Sundram. Sundram, just check with the support team, but this program is included. If you have enrolled for the MBA 25 night batch, then XAT classes are included for you. You don't need to enroll for it separately. Okay. Not much, Shubham. Shubham, XLRI typically gives about, as I said, 60 to 65% weightage for, let's say 60% weightage for the XAT score, about 25 to 30% weightage for the interview process, which includes the GD interview, VAT, or anything else which might be there, and about 5 to 10% weightage for all of the parameters, including your past academics and work experience, etc. Okay. So not much weightage for work and academics as such. It is significantly based on your performance in XAT as well as performance in the interview. So, if there are no more questions, we'll close the session. Good night and see you again in the night classes for XAT. All the best.